Who were the Wall Titans in Attack on Titan? Of course, we know who they were. They were the people of Eldia who fled with the first king when he fled. But who were they? The series claims there are tens of millions of Titans, even hundreds of millions of Titans, depending on which translation you go by. Though in reality, when you do the maths, the total number of Wall Titans works out to less than 500,000. Even so, that's still, if we be generous, 500,000 people who would need to be turned into Wall Titans. So, who were they? Originally, I did have this idea that they were criminals, whether war criminals or not. And I do think this theory has some weight to it, as I can see both sides of the argument. One side of it would be that Karl Fritz saw the act of making the criminals become the protectors of humanity as a just punishment for their crime, making them stand guard for possibly eternity, in which we know is something similar to a never-ending nightmare, of which would all be done in an unmoving body, concealed in darkness and unaware of the passage of time. But would that then not make Karl Fritz just as bad as the criminals? If not worse. And the other side of the argument is, if the first king of the Wall fled to Paradis because he denounced war, he would want no place in the war. So it wouldn't really make sense to force his power over the other Eldians in a dictator-like manner, in which he forces the Eldians to become his slaves, just as those who had reigned before him had done. It also raised the question of how exactly the first king would have gotten the Titans to Paradis if they were criminals. One theory could be that the first king transformed a handful of willing Eldians into mindless Titans who would obey his command, and then he literally used them to carry the prisoners onto the boat in the ocean, put them on there, and they could run and eventually travel to Paradis against their will. However, if he were to make a bunch of 50-meter tall colossal Titans, anyone the Titans did try to carry would most likely burn to death. So it seems unlikely that they would have created any Titans beyond 15 meters, which could only really carry one or two individuals. And that seems like a waste of human life. You use Titan shifters to make, or rather, regular Titans to carry two people, but you lose one person in result, so you already lost a third of your population, and that seems wasteful. So it seems unlikely that this would have been the method the first king would have used. Alternatively, it could have been that the first king wiped the memories of the criminals before even leaving the island of what would become Mali, so the criminals willingly came, having no knowledge of their past actions or why they were going to Paradis. But once again, this calls into question the morals of such an act, of if the criminals who became the Wall Titans had no knowledge of why they were being punished, would that be a just thing for Karl Fritz to do? Or to put it in a simpler terms, is it justified to punish a guilty person if they have no knowledge of the punishment or why they are being punished? Seeing as the entire story of Attack on Titan revolves around the seeking of knowledge, and there is even a subject that is addressed in the series between Kaya and Gabby, where they discuss whether punishing Kaya's mother for the sins of our ancestors, of which she has no knowledge of, is a justified or fair thing to do. Alternatively though, the argument to that is, it wasn't the desire of Karl Fritz to punish the Eldians by taking their memories, but instead was done so they could live a life of peace within the walls, free of the knowledge of their ancestors' sins, until the day of judgment did come, allowing them to live a life of peace where they are not burdened by their sins until their very last day, where they will not know of their sins but will be their last day, so there is no worry. And this is a real psychological concept, that if someone is unaware of the possibility of a better life or better option, they are less likely to actively strive to change or fight to improve the current situation. Of course, humanity is humanity, and within the series, the scouts push forward to gain more knowledge beyond the walls. So overall, I don't believe the walls were made out of those forced into becoming Titans. Instead, I believe the answer is much more simple. I believe the Wall Titans were simply willing volunteers. I believe the Wall Titans were made up of the old, the sick, and the injured, as well as those who wanted to atone for their actions in the war for what they had done. For the old, it could have been that they knew they only had a few years left, and instead of just wallowing away and letting their life waste, they wanted to instead devote their lives to protecting their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and future descendants. The sick, who knew they weren't going to get better, offering themselves as a shield for humanity, where their feeble bodies could be used to save people. The injured from the war so traumatized that they knew their lives would never return to peaceful again, as well as those who had seen the reality of war and wanted to atone for their actions and seek penance for what they had done, turning from those who took lives to those who protected lives. While I did originally think it would be hard to find 500,000 people willing to sacrifice their lives for humanity's future, after looking up wartime casualty statistics, 1, I'm now quite depressed, but 2, there absolutely would have been more than enough candidates for War Titans. Or perhaps the first king just randomly selected 500,000 people, turned them into Titans, and then wiped the memories of anyone who ever knew them. But now that we know, or at least theorize, who the War Titans are, I have one more question. What happened to the War Titans after the Rumbling? Well, I did originally have a video answering that question in a somewhat whimsical, fun, entertaining manner, but turns out Isayama actually answered this. They returned to being humans and were subsequently killed by those who had survived the Rumbling. My video was less depressing, but, you know, we have an answer, so there's that. I might still upload that video, actually. It could be fun, but we know it's not the truth, so I don't know. Let me know if you want to know. And, by the way, what do you think of the theory? Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm wrong? What would be your theory? Who do you think the War Titans were? Let me know in the comment section below, and as I'm making this video, the channel has this many subscribers. If you want to join that awesome number, it's only $9.95 a month or free if you press that button down below. Thanks for watching. See you next video.